Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. We're here today with catch up. It's not Friday anymore, it's Monday. So we're doing a recent reads, Friday reads on a Monday. I just wanted to tell you about some of the books that I've been reading since the year started. It's been a while since I made a video because it's been a while since I posted a video. I filmed a couple of videos and had to discard them because my audio is getting a little messed up. So let me tell you about some of my technological challenges before I tell you about the books. So I guess my phone is getting a little older. So when I use my phone to record, I don't have a video camera. So I use my phone to record. But projecting into the phone for a video these days, the audio seemed a little low. So I started using the headphones. And you could tell when I started using these wires. And then one day, a couple of weeks ago, I noticed that I guess the wires were getting maybe a little short in them or something. So I'd move and the audio would go down, and then I'd move another way and the audio would come back up. And I wouldn't know until when I'd finished filming the video and I was editing. So I tried to splice a couple of those videos together and still posted them, but I didn't want to put you guys through that. I tried to use my wireless headphones, but that didn't work either. So I ended up having to purchase a new pair of headphones. And then they came and I'd kind of fallen out of the habit of making videos, I suppose. So a couple of days went by when I didn't post a video. But I say all of that to say, new headphones were back. So just wanted to catch you up on what I've been reading. And all this time I haven't been posting videos. So since the year started, oh, Happy New Year. If this is your first time watching a video from me since 2022, Happy New Year. It's gotten off to a really great start. I'm looking forward to sharing my astoundingly wonderful reading year with you. I hope you also have a wonderful reading year, is what I'm saying. So, books that I have been reading since this year. So, in the beginning of the year, I guess I posted that on January 1st or 2nd. I posted my reading intentions for 2022. I told you about my TBR for January as well as my big TBR project for this year. So instead of going through like a list of goals and challenges that I'm going to be doing, I am trying to be strategic. Reading some books that I already own that I wanted to read, and just books that I've been wanting to read, hear about them, and been wanting to read them, especially classics. So I posted that video. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, I'll link it down below so you can go check it out. So I posted graphics of my reading intentions for the year, and I've been trying to whittle that down. So few of the books that I started reading already this year attack those goals. I'm really proud of myself. So the first book that I wanted to start the year with, the first book that I finished, was Persuasion by Jane Austen. I actually read it. Back when I was in college, I had a roommate who was a bookworm. And together we started the first book club that I participated in. We started reading Jane Austen's books, and I think I read all 6, because back then I thought there were 6 novels, and I thought I'd read all 6, and I didn't have my own copies at the time. So since then I've acquired copies, and just looking through now, I can't remember which of the books I'd read or if there were ones that I hadn't, so I don't know. I'm rereading. I do know that I read Pride and Prejudice because my copy of Pride and Prejudice has my notes in it, so I'm rereading all of the novels, and I guess I hadn't ever read Persuasion because this felt like a first time read for me, and I loved it. I love that this Barnes & Noble classic has the picture of Anne on the front reading. She looks like me, sitting off. I mean, I don't think I have a dress like this, but she's wearing this, her dressing, her very formal loungewear, and she's sitting in a couch just reading, and I loved it. Anne is completely a bookworm. Backstory to Anne Elliot: she's a middle daughter, and her father and her older sister are society obsessed, and her younger sister is married and just like begging for attention and doing desperate things to get attention from her husband and everybody else. But Anne is this very even measured middle daughter. She's very knowledgeable about who she is, and she didn't always do that, you could see that she relied very heavily on other people's opinions. And she was a younger person, but as she's gotten older, she's gotten more aware of what she wants and who she is. And she's just a very measured, even person. She has these really wonderful bookish recommendations to give to people, bookish ideas, but she's not given to flights of fancy. She's a very mature woman in her 20s, and it is about her love story, but it's also about just who she is and how she advocates for herself and advocates for others, and how people come to recognize that strong will that she has and to value it. And I love this book because main character is a bookworm, and there are a couple of places in here where she talks about where she gives recommendations to someone, and she values prose over poetry, and she talks about why, and it's wonderful, is what I'm saying. So I read Persuasion by Jane Austen, check number 1 off my classics TBR for 2022. So I did that. And then when I was finished with reading this book from the 1800s, I felt like I needed to read something a little bit more contemporary. So I read, it was not on my TBR at all. So I read one book of my TBR and I went rogue. So I read The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, because Laura Dave is one of those authors who I started. I was reading all the books that she had published. I read 800 Grapes. I read The First Husband. I read The Divorce Party. I read like 4 of her novels, like one after the other, back when I found her, because I love her fiction. She's a little like the American version of Leanne Moriarty from Australia and Jojo Moyes from England, because she writes that contemporary fiction that is just like really immersive. So she published a book a couple of years ago that I'm going to have to go back and I'm going to have to go back and catch up on, because I missed a book in her publications. But this one just came out in 2021 and I wanted to read it, so I did. I got a copy from the library and I read it like in a day and a half. The Last Thing He Told Me is about a woman who gets married. She's probably in her late 30s. When she gets married, her husband already had a daughter, and she is trying to be a stepmother to this girl, but the teenage girl is a little unreceptive. And then at the beginning of the novel, the husband disappears. There's some issue at his job and he just goes away. He leaves a note for the wife telling her to protect the teenage daughter. And then the book is about the wife trying to discover why her husband is gone, who he was before he left, and who she needs to be for that child now that it's just the two of them. So it's a little bit of a discovery of a mystery, and a woman learning to be the things that she probably needed for herself when she was younger. And I love this book. Man, the writing is just so immersive. It's just, read it. I can't tell you too much about the novel because it's a mystery, and you're uncovering the mystery as the main character is, but it's just like, if you have people in your life who are not biologically related to you but treat you even better than some of your family, or if you are that to someone else, then you absolutely love this book. So go read it. The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. New release. I got a copy from my library and I loved it. So one book from the TBR, one book not from the TBR. So we had to return to the TBR a little bit, but not my TBR currently. This is a TBR that this book wasn't on my TBR for this month or this year because I had planned to read it in December. I'd requested a copy from the library and it just didn't come in time. It came in early January, so I was like, yeah, knock this off. So I read The Catcher in the Rye by Jd Salinger because I didn't go to school in the United States, didn't go to high school in the United States, so that was not a part of my reading list. And now I can definitely see why it's a book that's recommended to high school students. Not because the main character is a role model, but because maybe he goes through a lot of things that young people may fantasize about, and the book certainly shows why some of those are not fantasies to be followed. So the main character in The Catcher in the Rye is Holden Caulfield. He is a teenage boy, 16 or 17 years old, and he's going to this prep school in Pennsylvania. He's from New York. His parents have sent him to Pennsylvania because he seems like he keeps getting kicked out of other schools. But you know, when you have money, you can send a kid to another school. And so he's reeling from some losses in his life, and he just can't focus. He can't concentrate even though he's a really smart kid. You can tell that from his writing. He's not focused. And if he could just focus, right, he could do well, but he can't focus. And it doesn't seem like anyone is really treating him for the reason that he is ailing, which is that he lost his brother some time ago. His brother had died. And, you know, I don't know how a kid recovers from that, but he certainly is still dealing with that in a really heavy way. And so the book is about his relationships in school as well as when he leaves school without his parents knowing and starts wandering the city, New York City, that is, and getting into all kinds of things because he has some amount of money that he can do things. So the book, I think, is a little bit of a cautionary tale. What would happen if you had freedom and the money to pursue your fancies? And, you know, you see that things don't go well for this kid. But it's really interesting. It's a really interesting story because the relationships between how this boy, how he talks about himself and kind of how he talks about other people. And we see adults trying to intervene in his life and some of the advice that they give him, some of the counsel, and also his fears about getting too close to other people. And I loved the exploration of the themes. So yeah, I think The Catcher in the Rye by Jd Salinger is an excellent read. I know not everyone will agree. It's not a book for everyone because, you know, it's a banned book. It's a book that some people have real issues with because this teenage kid is like cursing and swearing and so on. But I think it's really great at what it's supposed to do. So read that, kind of got back on track with the TBR, and then I decided, let's go rogue again. So the next book that I read was Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Gilman Perkins, which is not really a book. I read a free copy online because the story was written. It's a short story, and it was written in the 1890s. So it's free online now, Gutenberg Project, and I read it because Doris and Heidi were talking about it. When we were reading Eric Larson's book, Dead Wake, there was discussion about rescuers that were prescribed to women ailing from things. The treatment was just lie down and don't do anything until you get better. And so in this story, we're reading about a woman who is ailing and her husband is also her doctor. So he prescribes the treatment and he's also the person to enforce it. And so we read about her having this issue and her husband saying, you know, okay, just lie down, don't do anything, don't do any of the things that would make you feel better, just don't do anything at all. And so she's kind of locked in this room and she starts to have these thoughts about the wallpaper that's on the wall. And it's a fantastic story about the obligations and the limitations of relationships. It's a little bit about how women have been treated by society, how sometimes we are expressing ourselves, but people don't want to hear because they don't want to deal with or they don't know how to deal with what we're talking about. And so they try to relegate what we're saying to flights of fancy or to being unreasonable or, you know, just why don't you stop talking because you're pretty over there, but, you know, why do you also have to talk, that kind of thing. So read that. It wasn't specifically on my TBR, but it's a story that I wanted to have read, and because it is a book, I was able to check off another book. So those are the books that I have finished thus far. I'm currently reading a few things. I'm reading On a Night Like This by Lindsay Kelk, which I started reading maybe yesterday, and I'm going to be reviewing this for the publishers later this month. So when I'm finished reading this, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. It's an arc set in England, and it's about a woman who is engaged to be married, but her relationship is not going well. You could tell that she and her fiance are at odds. He no longer really sees her. She's like one of those possessions he's acquired, and so now she just needs to stay over there and how about you just not talk, just do what I say, and yeah, that kind of thing. So pretty archaic, right? Kind of sounds like the themes from the yellow wallpaper and some of the themes that are mentioned in Persuasion. So loving that this woman is speaking up for herself and doing what she needs to do for herself. One of the things that she's doing is she goes off to take a job as a personal assistant, and yeah, she's getting to do some traveling and so on. So I'm assuming that since this is a romance, that that early relationship is not gonna continue. So we'll see how that goes. I didn't read the synopsis. I know the synopsis tells you what the book is going to be about, but I don't read book synopses, especially not for books that I'm going to read right now. So, not reading that synopsis because the book itself is pretty engaging. So, I'm reading that. I'm also rereading The Life Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. Read that few years ago, but I usually try to read a book about tidying and decluttering at the beginning of the year. Not necessarily that I'm going to put in practice any of the things that I'm reading, but I like to have it in mind. I do need to do a little it's not decluttering. Marie Kondo says it's not decluttering. You're giving room to the things that spark joy in your life. And I do need to downsize some things. Like I need to go through my bookshelves and take out some of these older books that I have read or have no intention of reading, and just lightening up the load so I can actually store the books that I love and want. Because right now these double stacked things, they're not really going well. So reading that book for inspiration, even if I don't necessarily apply all the things that are in the book, not applying all the lessons, that's fine. I'm reading the book. So reading that should be finished later this morning. And I'm also reading Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I started reading that free copy from my library as well. That's part of my 2022 reading intentions. So that's a TBR book. And you know the story. Anne is an orphan girl, and this family takes her in, the family from Green Gables. And it's not a traditional family because it's not a husband and wife. They're actually brother and sister. Marilla and Matthew Cuthbert take her in. She's not exactly what they expected she would be, but she comes to live there, and it's about how she takes ownership of this life. And I love it. I love that the book is entitled Anne of Green Gables, even though she's not originally from Green Gables. Like, she takes possession of this place like it's hers. And she's just such a lovable character. So Ellen Montgomery is from Canada. And I always wondered where Anne of Green Gables was set. So it's a Canadian. Yeah, so I'm loving that. I could speed read it, but I'm not, because I love it. I'm savoring the reading. So those are the first 7 books that I'm reading in 2022. Of those 7 books, 6 of them are female written. Only 1 is by a man, and that's a really great way to start the year, right? Britta would be proud. Because this is a recent reads catch up, I'll just mention a couple of videos that I have watched recently that I found really inspiring for one reason or another, and I urge you to go watch them as well. One is Britta Bowler's videos. I watched a couple of her videos yesterday and today, so I'm not even sure where she mentions things. But one of the things that Britta did was she created a list on Goodreads of 1001 books written by women. And if you love list challenges, it's another really great challenge to go through and see how many of those books you've read. And just FYI, for the subscriber, I can't remember now, was it Rebecca, who told me about this link that Britta has in her video. I went through the list myself, and I've read about 70 of the books, and a few of them are books that I'm currently reading. Like, I have them marked currently reading on Goodreads, even though I'm not necessarily picking them up every day and reading a few pages. They're books that I started and will continue at some point, so currently reading. But yeah, I finished about 70 of the books on that list of 1001 books by women, and a few of the authors that are mentioned there, I've read other books that weren't on that list. So maybe at the end of the year, I'll go through that list again and see if I've gotten up to about 100. But if you want to go take a list challenge today, check out Britta's 1001 Books by Women. It's a good reads list. You can just go through it and see how many of the books you've read. Also watched a video from Heidi, My Reading Life. And Heidi talked a little bit about her reading intentions for 2022. And she mentioned some projects that I love. One of the things that she talked about was this list that her high school teacher had given her, books that a high school student or college age student should have read. So she's been actively going through that list since she was a teenager, and she's just about to finish that list now. So a few of us, I noticed other people had commented on her video asking her to share that list. So I think stay tuned, and Heidi's going to share that list with us as well. It's a 3-page list of books that college age students should have read by now. But if not, then they could continue reading them until, their middle age or whenever they're finished. So those two videos have lists in them that you might want to see if you like list challenges, is what I'm saying. So thank you so much for watching this video. We'll be back soon. Hopefully we'll get up to speed so we can make a Friday Reads video actually on Friday. But I have a lot of videos that I want to record and share with you during this week. So stay tuned to this space for more videos. And of course, thank you so much for watching this one. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. And we'll be back soon. And until then, happy reading. Bye.